Hi guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com. I'm doing a quick weekly news recap for all big MMO news for the week ending August 10th, 2015. I am back from Seattle and we're back to our normal schedule. I'll talk a lot about the adventure with Erhan in Seattle for the Dota 2 tournament in tomorrow's podcast. First up, as you can see from the video playing in the background, is a bit of news about World of Warcraft. The big news this week is that Blizzard announced in Gamescom the latest expansion to World of Warcraft called Legion, which introduces a lot of new content to the game, but mainly the highlights include a higher level cap of level 110, a new class of Demon Hunter, as well as a major new zone called the Broken Isles. Now, the last expansion for the game, Warlords of Draenor, was a bit criticized for being a bit lighter on content. This time around, hopefully Blizzard addresses that issue. There's also a new PvP progression system being added, which allows players to unlock PvP-specific spells and abilities as they climb through the new PvP progression path. Also in WoW-related news, the game's player base actually declined quite a bit since its last earnings report. They're down to 5.6 million subscribers, which is almost a 50% drop since the Warlords of Draenor expansion launched earlier. But still, 5.6 million is a huge number. And for those curious when the new expansion will come out, there's no word on that just yet. Next up, some Dota 2 news from the International 5, which concluded on August 8th, 2015. EG was announced the winner of the latest World Championship for Dota 2, and the game's prize pool was $18.4 million, with the winning team getting about $7 million, so that's over $1 million per player, which is actually by far the biggest prize pool for esports currently. You can see some of the player reactions in the video in the background too, so it was actually a really cool event, and afterwards a lot of fireworks going off, and it was really awesome. My brother and I were both there, and you can expect to hear a lot about the TI5 in the next podcast. Hopefully, League of Legends also follows the same path of Dota 2 in that they have a prize pool funded by players through crowdfunding, which would be awesome. Also worth mentioning about the tournament is that this is the first time a US team actually won, so go USA. Up next, a little bit of news from ArenaNet about Guild Wars 2. Basically, ArenaNet revealed some information about the mastery system in the upcoming Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns expansion. And the goal of the new system is to do away with the traditional gear and level grind of traditional progression by basically introducing context-specific skills and abilities. Basically, skills and abilities you learn through progression, not directly tied to grinding, but rather completing quests and adventuring through the game. This means that a lot of skills will be learned as you adventure through very specific zones. ArenaNet promises that this system will require both time and expertise, but honestly it sounds a lot like the traditional progression system anyway. But we'll learn more when the final thing's actually released and playable. Next up, some news about League of Legends. Remember last week we said Gangplank died? Apparently he's that was all JK, and Riot was just kidding around. He's back for good. Players that do play Gangplank before the Village War events ended on August 10th will get a free skin for Gangplank as well. It was a bit weird to kind of just say he's gone and removed from the game, and then boom, he's back. I'm not sure what Riot was really going with that. I mean, they tried to make a story around it, but they brought him back so quickly that it didn't really matter anyway. I'm sure many people suspected, though, that he wasn't actually gone for good. It would just make no sense to remove a hero that they just somewhat recently updated anyway. Next up, some exciting news from Greybox's Dreadnought. The news is that closed beta signups for the game are now officially live. As you can see from the video playing in the background, it's basically a capital ship warfare style game that looks a bit like Star Conflict or the Star Citizen space fighting module. The game is supposed to be all about strategic gameplay and positioning rather than just dogfighting style combat. And graphically, the game looks hella intense. The game is powered by the new Unreal 4 engine, so it's going to look beautiful when it comes out. And even though closed beta signups have begun, there's no word on when exactly closed beta will begin or full release will actually come around. But the game is definitely making progress. Up next, some big news from Rift, the pay-to-play game gone free-to-play from Tryon Worlds. The news is that the upcoming 3.4 update is going to introduce a new calling called the Primalist. This is especially big news because this is the first new calling since Rift's launch years ago. And for those unfamiliar with Rift, callings are essentially archetypes, and each archetype, in this case the calling, has multiple classes underneath it. In this case, the Primalist will contain 6 archetypes, six classes underneath it, called the Vulcanist is one of them, the Berserker, Typhoon, Titan, Dervish, and the Preserver. Now, this is definitely big news for Rift, but also including the update is quite a bit of other content too, including a new expedition zone, raid, dungeon, and more. Now, there's no official release date just yet, but it'll be released sometime this fall. Up next, some news about World of Warships, the recently launched naval battling game from Wargaming. And the news is that World of Warships will soon be getting a German tech tree later in October. Meaning players will be able to battle out with German ships. The marquee features of the German ships are expected to be its survivability, so players will be able to survive a lot longer in battle. But players will be able to test the ships out themselves later in October when they actually launch. Now, World of Warships is definitely off to a good start, but time will tell whether it can come even close to the popularity of World of Tanks. Moving right along, we have some news about Trove. Trine World revealed the upcoming fall update for the game called the Shadow Tower, which will introduce an entirely new class called the Lunar Lancer, which has actually long been rumored to be the next class in line. Also including the update is supposed to be a lot of new endgame content. However, details of the upcoming endgame content have yet to be revealed. The game is also headed to Mac later this fall, which should broaden the game's already wide appeal. And for those who have not been following Trove, the game is actually hugely popular on Steam with lots of concurrent users, easily one of the most popular games on Steam at the moment. So if you haven't tried it, maybe worth checking out. Next up, some more news about Skyforge. The game's developers, Allied's team, posted the full set of patch notes for the Crucible of the Gods expansion, which are actually separated into 6 different categories, meaning there's a lot of stuff to read, from new content to bug fixes. The biggest additions have already been announced, such as Divine Forms and Raids. Some of those many things to read about include dozens of rebalances for all the classes, as well as some changes to the cost structures of the Pantheon facilities. And for a game that just launched open beta fairly recently, seeing such a big update like this relatively soon is definitely awesome. Next up, some news about Gigantic. The game's closed beta is set to begin on August 28th. If you haven't played the game's alpha, fear not, you can actually begin playing the closed beta relatively soon. The game's closed beta is set to be open to pretty much everybody, so there really won't be too many restrictions on it. And keep in mind, this is the game that requires you to upgrade to Windows 10 before you can play it, and that is also the case for the game's beta. But yes, as we said before, the upgrade to Windows 10 is free, so if you want to check out Gigantic, you do have to upgrade. Gigantic is yet another entrant into the wildly competitive MOBA scene. Hopefully the game does well. It does look quite pretty. Also, should be mentioning that the game's closed beta, much like the alpha, will only be available at specific times, including most weekends. Which feels a bit odd because, I mean, they're letting almost anyone play the beta, but they're restricting what times you can play. Next up, a little bit of news from Games of Glory. A little bit of odd news, actually. Apparently, Games of Glory will be having a Persistent Universe feature starting in 2016. And it is a mobile already, and it's a little bit different because it has some shooting elements. But apparently, the Persistent Universe element will allow the results of each game, each MOBA battle, to influence the way the content is added to the game. So every win or loss, depending on which faction you are on, just changes the progression of the game. It's a bit odd, and I don't think any other MOBA actually does this, but time will tell how it actually works out. As of now, Games of Glory is not too popular. I've already done a first look video on it, and it felt a bit laggy at my end. But the game is different, so I'll give it props for that. The next and last bit of news this week is that Skysaga is actually offering more alpha keys to the game, and actually it was only available on August 8th, 2015, and anyone who wanted to access the game on that day could have by using the Access 615 code. However, it's not that big of a deal though, because if you want to play Skysaga, you apply for an alpha key and you most likely get one within a few days via email anyway, so it's not really that restrictive. And as you can see from the video in the background, Skysaga is basically a lot like, it's a voxel based game, similar to Trove, Minecraft, inspired by that genre of games. But yeah guys, that's it for MMO News this week. If you guys want to hear all the news and learn more about MMO News, do check out MMOs.com/news. But anyway guys, I am out for now. See you guys tomorrow on the podcast. I expect a lot of fun stuff in the podcast tomorrow from TI5 and just MMO News this week and just other fun discussions because Shirley is back from her vacation too, so the crew is all back and we are back to a normal schedule. Anyway guys, later.